As John mentioned, we have a terrific program today. And I titled it, "Is This Really Our President?" So we're going to tell you a little about it. He is the program today. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what he's going to go over with us, some of his experiences. And I'm going to give you a little bit of his background. His first whitewater trip was during college in the early 70s, and he was inner tubing down the Santiam and Mackenzie Rivers in Oregon. His first inflatable whitewater kayak in 1980s on the Rogue River. His younger brother Kevin enticed him into rafting. So he did the swiftwater rescue. He became a swiftwater rescue technician in 2011, fairly recent. Wild and Scenic Rogue River he did, class 4 and 5. He's done that twice a year now for 10 years. Does the Upper Klamath River in California, class 4 plus, the Cal Salmon in California, class 5. Chiriqua in Panama, he actually goes clear down there to go whitewater rafting. In it's class 4. In the Washington rivers, the Cedar, the Cispus, the Elwha, and the Squally, the Teton, Wenatchee, and white salmon. All of those are anywhere from 2 to 3, 4, class 4 rivers. So he's going to, as he goes through this program, he'll kind of explain what all these numbers mean and where they are. But apparently he's fairly experienced at doing this. So let's welcome up John Masterson.
This is what happens when Larry doesn't have a program. Bear with me for a second. As usual, it all worked well when I tried it out earlier. If I can get the video to work, I've got some of the videos I'll share with you. That was just going to be a brief overview of the Grand Canyon experience. I went there for the whitewater, and I have to tell you, I was awed by the canyon. We did 226 miles in 18 days, and it was just an amazing experience. So I want to talk about the experience, the place, and the kinds of things that happened. But before I get into the details of it, I have to tell you that a college roommate of mine that I had seen once in 43 years sent me an email and said, "Hey John, is this still your email?" I wrote back and said, "Yeah, why?" And he says, "Well, as part of my bucket list, I applied for a permit to raft the Grand Canyon. I know you like to do things outdoors. You interested in doing this?" So I said, yes. I actually had to move my retirement date up 2 weeks so I could do this. You can tell what's important in my life. And that happened in May of last year. And then our launch date was October 23rd. On October 2nd, I got an email from him saying, "Hey John, the guy who's guided the river for 70 trips is not able to go with us, and we need somebody to be the head oarsman." So I went immediately from, geez, I hope we get to row a little of this, to, can you be the head oarsman? So it turned out we had my son be the head oarsman. He's actually more experienced and better trained than I am. So it turned out to be a great experience, and I got to row more than I wanted to. So I'll just briefly go through these. This is, there were 4 rafts on the trip. This first one is my son and his girlfriend Stephanie. This is the second raft, and the guy up front in the yellow helmet is my college roommate. His wife is at the oars, and then a woman named Mia that I hadn't met before. Boat 3. Looks like somebody from the Duck Dynasty at the oars. His name is Roger. He's actually a soil scientist. His wife is sitting on the bench in front, and I'll come back to her. Her name is Dana. She was an incredible individual, and that boat didn't really have any experienced oars people. And then a good friend of mine, Doug Edison, sitting on the other side. And then lastly, my boat, and I had 2 people in my boat. On the left is Linda, who had never done any of this before. On the right is Annette. Annette was an amazing individual also. She'd done a little, she told me, yeah, I live in a house on the water, and we own a big boat, and we do charters, scientific charters up in Alaska. And, you know, I've had a kayak on the river. Well, come to find out, it was the Copper River, famous for its salmon, and there was no whitewater. And then you can see me in my famous rafting hat. The boats are 18 feet long, about 8 feet wide. They weigh about 1,500 pounds, fully loaded. And all 4 boats had enough food and supplies and gear to last us for 23 days. In fact, we had food left over. The ice chests were incredible to me because we were throwing out big chunks of ice after 18 days. I'm still amazed that it was frozen after 18 days. We used an outfitter for this named Seba. They supplied all of the gear that we needed except for our personal items, but they are not a guide service, so there were no guides on the trip. We literally did this by ourselves. None of us had been on the river before. So this is about a cubic foot. And if you go halfway down the slide, you'll see tides. The volume of water traveling down the river is measured in cubic feet. So the minimum was 7,000 of these every second. The maximum was twice that, up to 14,000. Wow. A lot of water. Yeah. This is about 6 gallons, so 6 times what? That's about 40 pounds. So lots going on in the river. We spent 18 days. We had 4 boats. I counted 96 rapids. They use a rating scale of 1 to 10. The rest of the world uses a rating scale 1 to 6. 1 being your bathtub, 6 being unrunnable. So 1 to 10 is 1 is your bathtub, 10 is unrunnable. We had rapids on this river up to class 9 in the Grand Canyon, which would be class 5 in the other. We traveled, 6 to 20 miles a day. We had 4 people go swimming unintentionally. Come back to that. But we had 0 raft flips, which was a mark of achievement. Just quickly, so day by day, the blue bars represent the cumulative value of rapids. So if the score was 10, it could have been 2 class 5s or 5 class 2s or some combination of those. And the red is the miles we went per day. So you can see some days we had a lot more intense rapids to go through. Other days it was fairly quiet. In the middle of that, around day 7, 8, 9 was the most intense. Just to show you a breakout of the rapids, so on a scale of 1 to 9, we had 1 class 9, we had 1 class 1. Majority of them fell into the lower range on this scale in the 2, 3, 4s. We actually had 2 people swim on one person swim on a 4. That was Dana, the woman I told you was an amazing individual. Now, a class 4 rapid is not a whole lot of whitewater, but she managed to get herself tossed out of the boat. Mind you, all 4 of the swimmers were at the oars when they got thrown out of the boat, because everybody else was hanging on for dear life. And I'll come back to the swimmers at the end there. So we spent 18 days camping. I've never camped 18 days in a row in my entire life. And everything, it's like car camping, only you put it in a boat. And you got to be sure it's tied on, and you got to be sure it's in waterproof containers. But it was incredible. The week before we were there, they had lots of rain, so we had some erosion going on like that, but that's pretty typical of what a campsite looked like. Oh, my favorite. On the river, everything you bring in has to go out. Solids have to come back out on your raft. Every liquid has to go into the river. So they want every campsite left pristine. So that on the upper left is actually a hand washing station. It's pretty ingenious. It's a little foot pump that pumps the water out of one bucket into the other, and then you can dump that back into the river, and then the solid toilet part is on the right side, which sounds a lot worse than it was. It actually was not a bad experience at all. Outhouses with the best views you can ever imagine. Typical kitchen setup. All those tables and such were on our boats. People shared the cooking duties. That was kind of fun. That's a shade wing that got put up using oars. That's Stephanie in her dry suit. Now some of the canyon. So you've probably seen pictures of this. That thing is huge, and you can see it from a distance on the right-hand side. But on the left-hand picture, if you look in the middle, there's a little bump on a rock. That's a person. It just was pretty amazing to me how huge that was. We hiked all the way back in there. That rock in the middle of the river, that didn't grow up from the bottom of the river. That fell off the canyon. All of the rapids in the canyon are from stuff falling into the canyon or being washed down from side streams. I wouldn't have wanted to be there when that thing hit the water. I can imagine what that would be like. This is just some of the scenery. Some places you had nowhere to get out of the boat if you had to, and other places it opened up quite a bit. There's some more of the rubble. This happened to be our first night camping. You can see in the middle of that photo a couple of sheep that just decided to come down and make themselves at home about 30 yards from us. Some more erosion. This happens to be one of the plusher parts of the canyon. And sometimes it's relaxing enough that you can sit there with an umbrella. About 90% of the water is flat. The other 10% is rapids. So a lot of time, literally having to paddle downstream through this. I'm going to invite Sherwin to make any comments here because he has done this trip as a guide, but you did it in a dory, not in a raft. Sheer walls like that. I have to tell you, I'm not sure I ever saw the actual rim of the canyon. We are in places a mile deep, and it's sort of the stair-step effect, so I have no idea if I ever saw the upper rim. Just was incredible. More erosion, water running down there. Here it gradually smooths out a little bit. Just goes on and on. The size of it is amazing. This is called the Pumpkin Spring. Apparently that water is full to the brim of water and sort of runs over the side and leaves that deposit on the side of the rock. We're told that's pretty toxic water. We got to do some hiking. This was some ruins that were, we believe, probably thousands of years old from some indigenous people based on some feedback some people gave us. Petroglyphs on the rocks were amazing. These are referred to in the guidebook as greeneries. I'll come back to this guidebook in a minute. But we had some folks actually hike up and get very close to being in those, and they said they look more like someplace someone would hide. Didn't make any sense to them that their location would have been used to store food, so it may in fact have been someplace to be safe from warring people. Anybody here ever been down to the bottom of the canyon to Phantom Ranch? David? Good. So this is the one place where there is some food and water and some civilization in the canyon. I think we hit this on day 7. And so if you want to get out of your boat and get back up, this is the only place you can do it, because after this you're stuck unless a helicopter comes and gets you. That's Roger. Some side canyons where you can actually jump into those pools. All right, let's take a look at some rapids and see if I can get this to work.
I think this is a 7 on their scale.
So I want wanted to show you that because that's the rapid that's most known for the biggest waves. What's interesting about this rapid is all those waves are made because the water is constricted into a narrow passage, and that constriction has the water bubbling up, so there are no rocks or obstructions or anything else that you can get hurt on in that rapid. The worst that's going to happen is the wave's going to flip your boat, and you're going to end up swimming. So that actually is a lot of fun. We got there, and there was a party just taking off to go through it in front of us, and the first guy went through standing in his raft. Yeah, no, show off. I did not try that.
John, what was the water temperature?
In the 50s. The water in the Grand Canyon actually comes out of Glen Canyon Dam upstream, which is why I made reference earlier to the difference in water levels from 7,000 to 14,000 feet. The dam release is based on the electrical need, which is pretty cyclical in a 24-hour period. So they publish a tide chart. And the reason that's important is so that when you're heading downstream, you know when high water is going to be at your campsite and when low water is going to be at your campsite. Because you're at risk of floating yourself away, or you're at risk of having to haul your boat down the bank to get back into the water. We learned early on, because we thought we had stuff above the high water mark. My son got up in the middle of the night, he used the head, and managed to have to run around and pick up pots that were floating in an eddy on the side of the river at midnight. We didn't lose anything, which is good. This is a rapid called Bedrock. And I share this with you because we actually had somebody do this. You're supposed to go to the right of that big rock.
The other right.
Yeah. But what's more important is we were so set on doing this to the right, my son decided that we weren't going to stop and scout this in advance. So he managed to get himself stuck on a smaller rock. It took us 2.5 hours to get him off. This is all down the left side of that big rock, and here's what's called a boat wrap. The water flips your boat. So this next video is of Lava Falls, which is the only Class 9 on the river.
That right there is the ledge hole. No bueno. This is where you want to be. Right here. Come over here, get right.
This is the rapid we had 2 people swim on.
Down in here, the V-wave.
Yeah, that V-wave was important.
Get right there. If you're over here, no good.
I look like I'm crying, it's because I...
So this guy didn't end up in that ledge hole at the front. This guy goes a little far to the right. Yeah, you can tell right now he's in trouble. He doesn't know it. Now he does. So while that boat's upside down, I want to point something out to you. Right about there. Remember that spot. Now the good news about this rapid, from top to bottom, it's 20 seconds long. So even if you swim, you can hold your breath for 20 seconds. Even with a lot of adrenaline. Unless you think it's all nice and tidy and sandy, it's not. The river is full of silt. It's been held. And so when you step out your raft, sometimes you're sinking in up to your knees or further if you are not careful. So that's actually a bit of a risk when you run the river. This is us scouting, and I'm not sure which rapid this is. Might be granite, because granite pushes you up against the left-hand wall, but I'm not absolutely sure. But this we would do in front of all of the major rapids except the one called Bedrock, where my son managed to get himself stuck on a rock for 2.5 hours. This is a good point. I want to talk for a second about Dana. She is on the far right in the yellow. She had done a little bit of river rafting, but it was about 10 years ago. And to her credit, when she realized that there wasn't anybody else in that particular boat or anybody else on the trip who could step up and take the oars, she did that. And she did that after she had managed to throw herself into the water on a smaller rapid. In the end, that was the only time she swam. She did an incredible job steering that boat. I was very impressed with her. But I want to tell you one more story about her, because her profession, she is a fish biologist by training, but she is currently administrator for the Chugach National Forest, which is the second largest national forest in this country. So she's a very accomplished professional. And as the trip went on, people, Tim, my roommate, kept saying to me, he said, John, you got to get Dana to tell you her bear story. I said, her bear story? Yeah, she's got an incredible bear story from Alaska that you would really appreciate hearing. So sitting down over some drinks after a day of rafting, I got Dana to tell the bear story, and it was this. She was taking 3 gentlemen scientists out on a fish count up a creek drainage, and I don't know exactly where it was, but they had to boat to this, and she beached the boat, and they hiked 1.5 miles up this creek drainage to do a fish survey. And as the Forest Service person, she's tasked with their safety. So as they're down in the stream, she hears what is distinctly a brown bear, what they call brown bear. In this case, it would probably have been a Kodiak style, up on the ridge, and she could see some bushes moving. So she turns to these guys and says, look, we need to get out of the river and get out of their way and get up on the bank on the other side as far as we can. So they all start to move. This bear is running down through the bushes. They can see the bushes moving all the way down. As they get to the other side of the bank, 2 bear come out of the bushes, running at them. Now, part of her job is to be proficient with the use of a shotgun. So she chambers around into the shotgun and raises the gun. And she said, going through my mind were what it takes to be a legal bear kill in the state of Alaska. Your life has to be in imminent danger. The bear has to be within 15 feet. You have to save the skin. You have to be able to prove the gender. I said, you're serious? You were thinking about all this? Well, this bear is trying. So the bear gets to within 15 feet. She discharges the weapon. She can see blood. She knows she hit the bear. The bear keeps on coming and hits the guy next to her, grabs his arm, knocks him down. She chambers another round, turns, and realizes that if she shoots at that point, she's going to go through and through the guy, the bear into the guy. Now she has to change her orientation. She fires a second round into the bear, sees more blood. The bear rises up. She chambers a third round, hits the bear again, and the bear falls onto a third person. At which point she turns to the other guy and says, "Where's the second bear?" And the guy says, "I have no idea, just kept on running." So she says, "Okay, we need to get out of here, but is everybody okay?" So she, the guy had the bear had his arm, says, "Yeah, I'm fine, I'm fine." The guy who was on the ground, they got the bear off him, he says, "I'm fine, I'm fine." So they take off back down the drainage, and they get about a half mile down the drainage, and Dana realizes she sees blood on these 2 men. So she says, "Stop. We need to be sure everybody is okay." Well, the guy whose arm was in the bear's mouth, they took off his rain gear, his Gore-Tex, and the bear had punctured the skin in his arm, but it had never punctured the Gore-Tex. The blood on the jacket was bear blood. So he had some minor injury to his arm. The other guy, his back was covered in blood. So they checked him out and realized that that was all bear blood from the ground when the bear was laying on top of him. So they all managed to get out of there with minor injuries. And she said later, she says, "John, that whole thing took place in about 15 seconds inside of about 15 square feet." And she said, I came back the next day with the state biologist. The state biologist helped me identify the gender. We skinned it, and in Alaska, then they auction off those skins and they use them for some wildlife preservation stuff. The person who shoots the bear is not eligible to bid on the skin, the hide. But she did share with me when I was up in Alaska last month, I had dinner with her and Roger, and she said, actually it was Roger told me that the state biologist had given her the bear head, so she actually had the bear head in her office. But my first reaction was, I want to be in your boat. You've got enough poise to do that. You've got my vote for almost anything. Not to be outdone, Annette, the little woman who was in my boat, also had a bear experience. She likes to hike and she does a lot of it by herself, and she can't weigh 90 pounds wringing wet. So a bear charged her, came at her knee. What did she do? She picked her foot up and kicked it in the head, and the bear ran. Really?
Do what you
Yeah, you do what you got to do. Some more whitewater. This is not us, but it gives you a sense. I pulled this offline. It gives you a sense of what it looks like when you're in the middle of one of these things. These waves tend to tower over the top of you. My son contemplating a run down a rapid, and I'm not sure which rapid this is. It may be Hance, which was the first class 8 that we came upon. And when you stand on the side of the river, you think, I can't see a rap down it. Now, we literally had a book like this on every boat. This gives you a mile by mile, campground by campground, rapid by rapid description. It is the only way you can navigate on the river. There are no signs, there are no mileposts, there's nothing. You have to figure this out. And it gives you some guidance about how to attack each of these rapids, but again, they change when the book's published, so you have to be very careful. So in Hance Rapid, we got together and said, okay, it looks like the best way to enter is at the right-hand side at the top, and then ferry across, you'll miss all the mess at the bottom. So Dana and I said, okay, Tim and Ryan, you go. We're going to stand over here with some safety gear in case one of you gets into trouble. We'll be able to throw you some lines and pull you out of the river. So they took off, and they started on the right-hand side, and they went entirely down the right-hand side. I thought, what was that about? I looked at Dana and said, they're on the right side, we're going right. So we went right, and I remember distinctly coming up the top of one of these waves, and I had my boat sideways, going down sideways, because one of the things you have to do is be able to pull back away from a hazard, and the hazard was the side of the river. I got to the crest of this wave, and the hole in front of me had to be 15 feet deep. And I looked in that, and I thought, oh my. So I managed to get the boat pivoted 90 degrees, hit the wave head on, and we blew through it, and we were fine. But I thought, what an introduction to rafting on the Colorado River. Weather, this was October, we had great weather. Some days it was cold. We did have a day where winds were greater than 50 miles an hour with a little rain and hail. It was pretty ugly, but generally it was shirt sleeve weather, and it was very comfortable. Know your people's experience. I went on this trip, and the only people's experience I knew were the ones I brought with me. I did not realize that no one else on the trip had any significant rafting experience. And know the equipment. It took us about 8 days to figure out what all we had in terms of some kitchen equipment and some other things. There was just so much stuff on these rafts. It was incredible. Food was great. I will do this again, but now I want to show you 2 last videos that were taken by Stephanie in my son's boat. So this, I don't think you could hear that. She says it's Lava Falls Rapids. So this is what it looks like from the front. You can't really see what's in front of you because it's all below the horizon line.
Is she wearing a GoPro or what?
Yeah, she's actually holding the GoPro. So to the left there, you start to see those boils. That's the ledge hole that will eat you alive. He's just skirting that on its right side. This is the V wave, which I told you to watch out for. After that, there are a couple of big waves that you'll hit. That rock on the right is an eddy on downstream of that.
What kind
I don't know if you could hear him. He says, that's how you eddy out. Getting into eddies isn't always easy, but he managed to do that just a few feet beyond the rock. Now this is about 10,000 of these every second come down. And the water was that color. It was sort of this chocolate milk brown. There you see. Now, what happened was you could see the bottom of a raft start to rise up right next to that rock. Tim, my college roommate, managed to throw himself out of the boat. So boat 3 is Dana. You can see there's water on the lens from when they come down. Problem with the GoPro is you don't know what it's looking at. Look past that rock in there, you'll see them emerge. There they are. And then the water dropped its north. So Dana did a great job on this rapid.
No pressure.
Nope. Oh, I got down. Yeah, what she yelled was, "Oh, swimmer." I threw myself out of the boat. Which was interesting because when you had the oars, I managed to fall left. I was hanging out of the boat upside down. The right oar had slid all the way through the oar lock, and I remember letting go and trying to grab the raft, which was futile. So I just sort of gently slid into the water. I was trying to breathe. It wasn't working very well. Finally, and that was the V wave that knocked me out. Finally, downstream from that, one of those other waves hit me in the top of my head on my helmet and pushed me down underwater. And I have this very distinct memory of saying to myself, "Quit trying to breathe, you idiot. It's only 20 seconds long. You can hold your breath for that long." So I did. I managed to wash up, and we had a great time after that. Last thing, on the wall is a topo map of the Grand Canyon National Park. In the upper right hand, you'll see a little purple sticky. That's to represent where we put in. On the left is where we took out. So we not only did the entire Grand Canyon Park, but we did a substantial amount in front of and behind that. Where we put in is the last place you can put a boat in. Where we took out is the first place you can take a boat out. So 226 miles in all.
Wow.
So it was fun.
Oh.
It was great fun. And I will do it again because I'm going to get through Lava Rapid. So, as you know, we always donate a book from the speaker. So I chose a book called Deep Water Man. So, Mike, I think we're ready for you.
John, I got a question.
Yeah.
When a raft would flip over, did you lose any equipment?
You would if it wasn't tied in well. So I have yet to flip a raft in my career, but I have lost equipment from getting wrapped on rocks and some other things. David?
How long are the oars, and how much control do you really have on one of those things?
The size of the oars depends on how big the boat is, but I think these were probably about 12 feet long. And most of your control is to do one of two things. is to rotate the boat on its center point, one way or the other, or to pull away. And that's an effective thing to do to slow your progress down. You can sort of row across a river, or you can row back upstream, and gives you a little more time to make some decisions. But it's very difficult to row forward. People still try and do it, they usually get into trouble. Yeah, yes.
Which counts more, courage or experience and knowledge to do such a trip?
Or idiocy. Experience.
Is it doable for anybody?
Yeah, but you would want to get training. Quite honestly, that swiftwater rescue training I took prepared me to swim the river, to help rescue other people out of the river. Because when you're in the Grand Canyon, you cannot call 911. There's nobody there. You've got to do it yourself, or other parties would have to stop and help you. We did pass one group who said, "Did you hear the helicopter last night?" And we said, "No, why?" He said, "Well, we did flip a raft at Bedrock, but nobody was injured there, but a guy broke his ankle playing Frisbee on the beach."
Oh.
So that helicopter.
People die in their
Well, how
beds.
did you call the helicopter?
So one of the pieces of equipment that you get from the outfitter is a satellite phone for emergencies. And that reception is variable depending on where you are in the canyon, where the satellites are positioned, and so you have to talk quickly. Earl?
You had 4 or 5 rivers that you've done in Washington State. You've not done the Wind River?
I have not.
Try it.
Okay. I
Class
probably
5.
would do that as a guided trip.
Class 5.
Yeah. Yeah, at my age, I'm not really want to take on too much class 5 without a guide. Okay.